Here we are back for some more creepypastas. So in spirit of it almost being spooky month, I thought I would just read all my spooky stuff like always because I don't really have other videos to post. Aside the video I just posted, but yeah, why not just dedicate all of October reading a bunch of spooky, scary shit because the only thing I can really do at this moment. Um, I'm not sure I can get away with putting this in the title, so I'll have to figure that out, how to not get it copywritten or age restricted or whatever. But yeah, today we're going to be reading the Disneyland Suicide Pact. Clearly says it's not going to be that long, so I'll try not to read super fast. I kind of usually want to read these when it's, later in the night and dark. But obviously, because of how my lights are, my LEDs are, it's crazy. But yeah, I got nothing better to do, so why not just make a few of these? And yeah, let's just jump right into it. Okay. I'm also sorry for the ads. It just comes with the website. Um. Okay. I'm writing this down to A, help me process what happened, and B, create some sort of written record. I'm a Disneyland employee, have been for 5 years, and I started running a concession stand, moved to ride operator, then into resort operations. All the while, I was pursuing a degree in psychology with intentions to become a psychiatric someday. After I graduated, I continued working at Disneyland while I applied to grad school. To my surprise, Disney offered me a job, something that would allow me to work in my field, kind of, and stay in the park. Job title Mental Health Assistant. I've been at this role for exactly a week. First week, worst week, last week. Haven't been fired yet, but let's just say I'm expecting a call. Let me back it up a bit. Deaths at Disneyland are rarely reported on, courtesy of sophisticated PR team and of a 168 billion company. Suicides, anywhere, are also rarely reported on, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. So, what do you think happens when there's a suicide inside a Disney park? It doesn't happen. Not outside to the world, anyway. Families of victims, innocent bystanders, or anyone else affected by suicides inside the park generally go away with generous cash offer and thick non-disclosure agreements. A disturbing online community has developed over the past year a group that encourages its members to kill themselves in Disneyland. It's called the Disney Suicide Pact, or DSP for short. Their stated purpose is to serve as a metaphor, to illuminate the stark contrast between the happiest places on earth and the utter horror and the darkness of suicide. A metaphor that people who are happy on the outside can be dead on the inside. For some, a call back to when they were last happy. I think their actual purpose is to terrorize innocent people to forever pervert happy childhood memories for the handful of people who happen to see the aftermath of suicide before the staff cleans up. The suicides have become more frequent in recent months, leading Disney to create a mental health assistant role. They told me I was the ideal candidate, someone young and hip enough to speak to the internet language of DSP community, and someone well versed in the park itself, and someone with a psychology background, however that meager might be. In the 2 weeks preceding my job offer, 4 suicides happened in the park. Kevin Goodwin took a fistful of pills, then got on the Star Tours ride and died in the middle of it. Clifton Hedges pretended to fasten his seatbelt on the Guardians of Galaxy Tower ride and flingled, that's not a word, his way off the elevator near the top and jumped 200 feet down the elevator shaft, dying instantly upon the top of the ascending elevator cabin. Patrick Brahill climbed off the Pirates of Caribbean boat and hid under the pirate's lair scene. He slit his throat and bled out, and he wasn't found until the next morning. Jenny Davies scored an overnight stay in the highly coveted Princess Castle, only to jump to her death in the middle of the night. And I bet none of you heard of these. They were not in the news, and they were not on the list of incidents at Disney Park website Wikipedia page. They are not on YouTube. They are nowhere. And that is the power of Disney PR at work. I like to think Disney wants the trend to stop out of the goodness of their hearts, but let's be real, it's all about the bottom line. If the witnessing part of victims' families talk too much, despite the non-disclosure agreements and the cash settlements, it can have a lasting effect on the park's visits. A $168 billion company can keep people quiet, but how many? In my first couple of days on the job, I generated a fake online persona for Dave Karat, a name I thought of while driving past a Wendy's, founded by Dave Thomas, and then looking down at my coffee cup, lid imprinted with Karat. Creating accounts on Facebook and a few others, once it was believable enough, I applied for the Disneyland Suicide Pact's online community, appropriately named the Mouse Gray Tiers, and I was accepted a day later. Just to be clear, you don't have to make the Suicide Pact in order to join the Mouseketeers. Anyone can join after a light vetting, and once you're ready to join the pact, you undergo a heavy vetting, something of the Dave Karat probably wouldn't pass, and are awarded a Mickey Mouse badge that accompanies your username on the site. After being accepted, I began clicking on all the usernames with the Mickey Mouse badge, trying to determine who the next victim may be. I quickly flagged 4 users as short-term risks, those that talked seriously about suicide in the park and appeared to be planning a trip, but one stood out above the rest. Her username was beauty_or beauty_beast. Her profile picture was showed a gentle girl with long blonde hair, probably 16, 17 years old. She was very forthcoming about her life, detailing her reasons for suicide and why Disneyland is the ultimate venue. She mentioned the nostalgia of Haunted Mansion on 3 different occasions. I saw her and the others talking extensively about Death Day a couple weeks earlier, Upon a bit more investigation, I discovered that Death Day referred to December 15th, the day Walt Disney died. December 15th was only a few days away. Beauty or Beast mentioned that her family was planning a trip to California during the week of December 15, that she may, in fact, be in the park on Death Day. Someone suggested that perhaps the stars have aligned for her. I private messaging her asking what her plans were, saying that I may be in the park for Death Day. She messaged back quickly and said she wasn't so sure, that she didn't want to ruin the day for her family. My heart broke. I asked if she'd do it in the mansion, and she said she didn't know but of course she did know that and so much more. She told me her plan was to push her family to go to the park on the 14th, then she said she was meeting a friend and ditch her family just before the park closing. Really, she'd have to hide in the park overnight, something that's much easier than people think, then kill herself right after the day before the park opening on Death Day. I knew that the online community was a toxic place for her, and that if I could talk to her in person, I could help her. I told her to message me when she knew her plans because I might be there too, and she told me she would. She said that her name was Shay Kane. On the morning of December 14th, I messaged Shay to see what time she was getting to the park. She didn't respond. She changed her profile pic of a photo to Walt Disney with black-out eyes. I spent most of the day standing in the security control room watching the turnstile camera feeds. It's common for at-risk kids to change their appearances shortly before committing suicide, especially girls, so she might have slipped through unnoticed because I never saw her come in. I messaged her a few more times telling her I was in town and that we should meet up or even meet in the park somewhere. She never responded. Before I went home that night, I showed Shay's picture to the overnight security staff and let them know to keep an eye out. I hardly slept that night. The next morning, I headed at the park at 7 a.m., 2 hours before opening. I gave printouts of Shay's picture to the morning security team, then walked to the Haunted Mansion. Disney is very thorough in their security camera coverage of the areas of where patrons are, but not so much behind the scenes. Disney speaks for employee-only areas. That meant I had to physically inspect every room of the Haunted Mansion, and after a fruitless hour of walking through the eerie, empty ride, I continued my search through the rest of the New Orleans Square, then Frontierland, and nothing. About 20 minutes before park opening, I got a call from security staff. They saw a female similar to the picture I gave them walking around the backside of the Haunted Mansion, and I rushed to the ride. I barged to the side employee entrance and immediately started calling Shay's name. This was only a couple minutes before park opening, so the ride was now running, music and sound effects and all. I moved through the haunted graveyard, the seance scene, the groom scene, all while yelling, "Shay!" at the top of my lungs. I felt defeated. There was a million places she could have been hiding. Finally, I made it to the dining room scene. The ride moves along the mezzanine level of the two-story dining rooms, and the scene features a large, elegant dining table with a gold plate settings all caked in cobwebs and dust. There's a tall fireplace, four wall moldings, high black chairs, and ornamented windows. Holograms of ghosts dance around the room. Finally, I found her. She was standing on the mezzanine level, but over the railing about 15 feet from the tracks. She was holding a rope in her hands, and her hair was cut short. Shay? I climbed to the railway and shimmied across the decorative mezzanine. I was worried that the whole thing would collapse since it was built for show and not to support actual people. She looked up to me. She had been crying. "Who are you?" "I'm Rich," I said. "What are you doing here? Can we talk?" She held the rope up for me to see, and her eyes followed it to where it was tied around the fire riser behind us. I sat down next to her. "Tell me what's going on," I said. We sat in silence for about 2 minutes, and I watched the ride cars roll by. Grim grinning ghosts come out to socialize, playing in the background, and they hadn't let people on the ride yet, which was a good thing. Eventually, she warmed up to me and began talking. She opened up about everything going on at school, at home, and in her head. It became clear that she didn't want to kill herself. She had thought about it a lot, but when she became a part of the Disney Suicide Pact community and heard all of the talk about Death Day, which happened to coincide with a planned family trip, she felt that it was her time. About 20 minutes of talking, she paused and looked down. "There's something else," she said. "You can tell me anything. I'm not the only one." "The only one what?" "Death Day. I'm not the only one that planned to kill myself on Death Day." A pit in my stomach grew. The room began spinning around me, and I started thinking about my research and all those forums that had talked about Death Day, about how Shay was the only one for sure going to be in the park that day. Who else? "Oh, God," she said, and brought up her hands to her face. "Rich, I was supposed to be a distraction." Oof. "A distraction from what?" My mind was racing 1,000 miles an hour. She began sobbing. "It's a small world." Shit. I stood up, not knowing if she was making it up to get me away, or if she truly was a distraction. "Come with me," I said. "It's fine, you go," she said. I pursed my lips and buzzed the medical on my walkie-talkie. I told them Shay's location inside Haunted Mansion. They were already waiting out back, and I told them to send a team to It's a Small World, and there might be a situation there. I climbed over the railing and ran through the ride into front entrance where hordes and antsy people were waiting for the ride to open. I ran past them, setting off a chain of whispers amongst the crowd. "What is he doing? Who is that guy? Did you see his face?" I called ride operators and told them to close It's a Small World, that we might have a suicide attempt, potentially multiple. They said that they haven't opened it yet anyways due to a mechanical issue, and that they would have kept it closed until the situation had been cleared. The park had only been open for a few minutes, and it was already crawling with people. I began running across the park when I got the call. Small World didn't get shut down order in time. The ride opened for a few minutes after our call. Shit. Sorry, I had to move my computer. Shit, what happened? "You better head over there." I continued running and soon joined by medical teams in yellow jackets, also running towards the ride. One of our park ambulances drove by, bewildered guests jumping out of the way. As I got closer to the entrance of the ride, the real horror began. People, men, women, children, were crying, many hysterically. One woman stumbled out of It's a Small World emergency exit and threw up violently into the hedges. I heard screams from the inside. I stopped at one of the medical staffers running out of the emergency exit. "What the hell?" "It's bad. It's really bad." I pulled out my employee badge out of my shirt that was visible. Park guests in the line began stopping me. "Sir, do you know what's happening?" I ignored everyone, hopping the fence and beelining for the emergency exit near the entrance. People were still climbing out of the boats, following the emergency lighting to the exit. One of the ride operators came on the loudspeaker. "Please calmly exit the boats. We're safe and follow the arrows to the nearest emergency exit. Ride operators will assist those who need help. Parents, please shield your child's eyes through the Scandinavian exhibit." Parents carrying children filed past me along the emergency path. "Keep your eyes closed, sweetheart. We're almost there." What were those people? Why is everyone screaming like that? Are all those people hurt? The pit in my stomach grew as I moved through the North Pole exhibit and into the Scandinavian room. Then I began to smell it, the overwhelming stench of vomit. I started to notice vomit tracked through and smeared footprints along the walkway, and for a moment the music kicked back on and the ride began to move again. Although it appeared that everyone had been successfully evacuated, the music startled everyone. It's a world of wonder, a world of tears, a world of wonder of hopes, and a world of fears. I turned the corner and immediately felt my stomach turn violently. About 10 bodies dangled from the ceiling, spread throughout the exhibit. Beneath the bodies, all bulging eyeballs and kinked necks, the model Scandinavian children swayed back and forth in their white snowsuits. There was so much that we share at the time that we were aware. The medical staff scrambled around, trying desperately to reach for the bodies, gently swinging about 10 feet off the ground. We have to get to the ceiling. To the ceiling, go! Sorry, I was rereading shit, trying to make sure I couldn't bear the sight any longer, the pressure on my face intensing until tears began streaming down my face. Hot tears, tears of death, of loss, of failure, tears of 100 friends and family members that would have impacted these suicides. I climbed back down through the emergency exit, through the North Pole exhibit, and into the sunlight. I caught a whiff of vomit and felt churning in my stomach pick up again. I ducked behind one of the hedges and vomited. You okay, sir? One of the guests in the line asked. I looked at him. Go find another ride. I radioed the medical offices asking if they knew if Shay made it out of the haunted mansion safely. I began walking that direction while I waited to get an answer. Eventually, they came back on. Shay appeared to have left. I was shocked. Like, they let her go? No, she made it back to the medical office and slipped out before she was evaluated. I began running to the medical office near the front of the park. The closer I got to the front gates, the more chaotic it got. Crowds of families were running for the exits. The customer service lines were packed 50 people in the back, guests and demanding refunds, I imagined. Disney is a great covering up in incidents and isolation, but when 10 people commit suicide on one of the busiest rides of the opening, that was hard to recover from. The medical office was nearly empty when the suicide victims had all been taken by ambulance to various hospitals at the Anaheim area. I took a deep breath and looked around. So eerily empty, so void of life. I walked out the back door to the medical office and looked around. I wondered if the pandemonium had spread to the entire park or only just to those who'd seen the ambulances and medical staff running around, and to those that saw the direct aftermath of the suicides, of course. I walked along the service road behind Disney City Hall, looking through the fence into the thick bushes that lay just beyond the park boundaries. And there stood Shay. She stood about 20 feet behind the fence among the trees and bushes. She saw me and took a step forward. I opened my mouth to speak, then I realized I had no idea what to say. She smiled, turned around, and disappeared into the bush. Out of everything I saw that day, Shay's smile is what I think about most often. Was it one of gratitude? A smile that said, you saved my life? Or is it sinister? A smile that said, I played you like a fool? She told me that her job was to serve as a distraction. Whether she was planning on killing herself that day or not, she succeeded. I could never imagine the shit that goes down at Disneyland or Disney World. And I'm so glad I'm not one of those people that ever wants to go to Disney World because I think that shit's really overrated. Or Disneyland. Um, I I could never. I could also never imagine like working at a place like that because of how much shit that goes down and how much shit that is probably so covered up. Like I think I've read conspiracy theories about this before about like the people that work there and like the people that have to do like that are in the costumes and like all that shit and like how much of like whatever bodies they find there like use them as like the attractions to the rides or whatever or I just I don't know. I could never, especially like after reading this shit, I could never go there. I could never go there and just be like, "Oh my god, this makes me so happy." Like, no, I would go there and truly just like inspect like what else can they be hiding? How do people still think that Disneyland and Disney World is such like the greatest place on the planet? Like I don't understand how people can think like that. Not to mention of just how expensive that shit is. Like I don't even want to know because it's unbearable living in this world as is, and affording what like everything that is like right now. It's unaffordable, unlivable, and just unbearable. So trying to like muster up the cost to just do a what 5 days at Disneyland itself, I don't get it. And I don't know. I don't understand how people can like, oh, take like my fiance there and like propose to her, like whatever, take my girlfriend there and propose. I hope to God that'll never happen because I never want to experience anything like that because I look at Disneyland, Disney World, and think there's shit going on there. No way in hell it's the happiest place on earth. I don't get how people don't think it like that. But then again, people aren't, like me and weird. But yeah, that was the Disneyland Suicide Pact written by Derek Walker. So that was fun. And I hope you all enjoyed. And if you're new to my channel, you know what to do. Everything's down in the description. I love you guys, and I will see you later.